Hello everyone, this is Miguel Greenberg. In this video I'm going to show you my workflow to create a React and Flask combined application. This is an update for a video and a blog post that I did a little bit over 5 years ago, I think in 2020, and not a lot of things have changed, but there's one somewhat important thing that did change. So I want to show you how the workflow that I'm using is in case you need to start a project now, so that you use the current tools, right? So that you use anything that's old or out of date. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow my own blog post here and show you all the steps. I'm just going to go through all the steps and bootstrap a React and Flask project here in front of you. So first thing to keep in mind are the requirements. So for this you need Python and Node.js. So these are the versions that I'm using here, but what you should do when you attempt to do this is to look up what the current versions or what maintained versions are at the time that you do this, instead of really using these exact versions that I'm using. What makes the most sense is that you find whatever is current at the time that you're doing this. Particularly if you are watching this in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, definitely go with whatever is current. Do not use these versions if they are too old. So with that said, we can move on to the next step. And this is the step, the main step that changed from the workflow that I showed 5 years ago. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool Vite to bootstrap my React project. And Vite is what people these days use in replacement for Create React App. Create React App is unmaintained now, sadly, so it's not a good idea to use it anymore. It might work, by the way. I don't really know, but yeah, it's not great to use things that are unmaintained because bugs are not going to get fixed. So Vite is what people use now. Maybe in 5, 6, 7 years, I'm going to have to do another video showing you some other tool. But for now, Vite is what people seem to prefer in the JavaScript ecosystem. So we're going to go with that. So the command to bootstrap a JavaScript project with Vite is npm create Vite at latest. Then you pass your project name. This is going to be a directory that's going to be created right here in this current directory. And then at the end, you need to select which template you want to use. And Vite is not specifically tied to React. Vite works with a whole lot of frameworks. It can bootstrap pretty much any JavaScript or TypeScript framework under the sun. So you have to tell it which template you want to use. There's a bunch of templates that are officially supported. The React template is one of them. And then there's a bunch more that the community creates. So you are likely to find a template for pretty much any framework that exists for JavaScript. So React is the name of the JavaScript template. And if you like more TypeScript, if you prefer the typed version, then you would use React-TS for to select the template that creates TypeScript files. However, I'm going to go with JavaScript on this. So there we go. So that bootstraps the application. I'm going to switch into it and let's have a quick look. Let's make sure that I'm not in front of the terminal. So there we go. So this is not very different from what Create React App created. This is mostly going to be familiar if you've done this before. So now let's move on. So next step is to install the dependencies. This is standard for any JavaScript projects. So let's go ahead and do that. It should take a couple of seconds. Maybe. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. So now we have all the dependencies installed. This is React and a bunch of other things. that are all installed in the node modules directory. So it's right here behind me. There we go. So next is to start the development web server. So exactly like Create React App, Vite provides a development web server that you can use to serve the React application. So let's clear this and then npm run dev. And that starts the web server. So here it shows you what URL you need to use to connect. And then this tool has a bunch of options. So you can type H and enter to see the list. And one that is interesting is O enter, which saves you from having to type the URL. This basically opens a browser, there you go, on the URL for this server. So here we have the application. It's running, comes with this little thing, which is kind of fun, and that's pretty much it. So now we have a React application running. So here I'm going to leave this terminal alone and split this, make a second one here to continue. So all of this we've done. This is all looking good. I should make a comment. This is reminding me that this application is like the Create React app, is hot linked to the source code. So anytime you make a change in the source code, the application reloads on its own. For that reason, we leave this Vite web server running. We're not going to touch it. So we leave it alone. We leave it in a terminal there in a corner, and it's going to send all the changes to the browser while we are developing. So it's actually very useful. So the React side is now going. So now we are going to do the Flask side. So for this, I created an API directory underneath the top directory of the React project. So the structure now is here. We have source, which is behind me. That is the source code for the React, and API is going to be the source code for the Flask and Python side. So very good. We're going to switch to that for a moment, and next step we are going to create, this is the usual stuff for Python, we are going to create a virtual environment. I should note here that there's a whole lot of tools that you can use to do this. There's UV that a lot of people are using these days. You're welcome to use whatever you like. I really like the standard way, the old way, because I don't have to install anything. So that is what I like. But feel free to use whatever you like. So then I'm going to activate my virtual environment. There we go. And if you're on Windows, you should probably, or you probably already know that the command to activate is slightly different. So check out the blog post if you're on Windows and you want to do this and you don't know how to activate. Activation of a virtual environment is useful because now the path in your terminal is modified so that when you run Python, you're running the virtual environment instead of the global Python. So next, I'm going to install my dependencies for the Python side. So pip install Flask and python.env. Very good. Let's clear this. So now we have the dependencies and we need to create the project. So I'm going to copy the code for the Flask application and put it here in api.py. So that's the pasted code. So this is a super simple application. It creates a Flask application and then one route, which is /API/time, which returns the current time. if you are used to old school Flask and are surprised to see why I don't have a JSONify here, yeah, that's not needed anymore. You can return a dictionary and Flask automatically does the JSON conversion. So this is it. For this example, all we need is just an endpoint that returns some data. So let's save this and quit. Actually, I'm not going to quit. I have one more file to edit. So I'm going to create a env file with my environment variables. So this is to configure the Flask application. Basically, we're telling it what the name of the main file in this server is, and also thank you, Copilot. And then also we are going to configure to run in development mode by default. This is going to give us the debug mode and the reloader, which is an equivalent to what the JavaScript side is doing, where anytime there's a change in the source code, the server reloads. So all of that is great to have. So there we go, save. So I'm going to go back to my top level directory, and next what I'm going to do is I am going to configure a proxy server. This is I did this in the Create React App version as well, although it was a little bit easier to do it for that one. So this is so that the React application can send requests to the Python application without having to know where it is running. So normally, if when you get to deploy this application for production, both the front-end code and the back-end code are going to be, not always, but likely running under the same URL. So in that case, you don't have, when you send a request from the front end to the back end, you don't have to use the domain. You can just specify the path. So we'd like to use that as well during development. And the problem here is that Python is going to run on port 5000 as its default. And then we have the React application, which is running in 5173. So the ports are different, and it's not going to work if you need to send a request from port 5173 to 5000. You're going to have to use the full URL, including the domain and the port. And we're going to try to avoid that by defining the proxy. So this is in the configuration for Vite. So let's open this config file, and what we are going to do, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to add a server section, and then inside server a proxy section, and inside proxy I'm going to say that any requests that the front end makes to /API, instead of going to the same server, the one running in 5173, I'm going to tell it to send them to localhost 5000. So there we go. So this is the configuration to get the proxy server going. So next thing that I have here in my own instructions is to configure a startup command for the Python side. So I haven't showed you how to start Python, and the reason is, even though it's easy to start directly, for example with Flask run, that will be the standard thing that you do for a Flask project. The reason is that when I'm working with a combined project, I'd like to have all the commands that administer or manage the project all in the same place. And I find the most convenient to use the npm or the JavaScript side for this. So I'm going to open the package.json file, and this file has this section scripts. Here you can see dev. This is the one that we used to run the development web server for Vite. We said npm run dev. So this is this dev. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an npm run API. And this is going to be the command that starts the Python server. So for this, we need to cd into the API folder, and then we need to run Flask run. And we do it using a path, a direct path to the Flask command, so that we don't have to rely on the activation of the virtual environment. This will work even if the virtual environment isn't activated, which is convenient. So run, and then one thing that I'd like to do in general for this type of project is to disable the debugger for Flask. And the reason I do this is that the debugger in Flask is a website, right? It's a web application. In this case, we're using Flask as an API. So none of the responses from Flask are going to be HTML, right? All of them are going to be JSON. So when there's an error, Flask is going to try to send the HTML code for the debugger in the response. And that really makes no sense in an API. So there's no point in using the Flask debugger. You are going to see, when there's a crash, you're going to see the stack trace of the crash in your Flask console in the terminal. So that's sufficient, right? The debugger is going to complicate things. It's going to confuse the front end. So there's no point in using it. So there we go. So now let's see. Right, so now we are going to test npm run API, and of course it didn't work. Let's see what mistake I made. Oh, right, comma. There we go. So you probably noticed that I always like to use trailing commas on everything. Unfortunately, JSON does not support trailing commas, unlike every other language under the sun. So for JSON, if the parser is strict, and this one is, you cannot put a comma at the end of the last element. So then we don't. Okay, so let's try this again, npm run API. And there we go. Now we have the familiar Flask server running. So let's see if I can. I'm going to put this one at the bottom and then split this one again. There we go. So to test the Python server, we can do, there we go, localhost 5000, so Flask is on port 5000, so /API/time, and we get the time response. This is the Unix time, the epoch time, as they say, number of seconds since January 1st, 1970, I believe. So this is a standard unit. It's recognized by pretty much every language, every tool. You're going to see in a moment how we use this in the JavaScript side to show the current time. So we have a front end running, we have a backend running, but we're not talking to each other, right? We have this application here that knows nothing of the front end. It knows about the proxy, right? We configure the proxy, but it's not sending anything to the server. So now it's time to add that into the application. So let's open app.jsx. So this is the top level, the main application file for the project that was created by Vite. So what we are going to do here is we are going to add an effect or side effect in React that will send a request to the backend to get the current time. So we add a use effect here, and we need to store that copilot is funny. So we need to store the current time that we are going to receive. So this is going to be a state. We're going to start with 0. So that's going to be where we store the time, and then we create the side effect. So side effects have 2 arguments, a function that has the code that needs to run, and this runs in the background. The whole point of doing this is that you normally don't do, or actually never do, any blocking stuff in the rendering function of a component like this one. So you have to put that to run in a background function, and side effects is the standard way to do that. So here we add a function. This is going to be the function where we add our code to send a request. And then the second argument is a list of dependencies for this side effect function. And the idea here is that when any variable that you list here changes, React automatically will rerun the function so that it gets an opportunity to refresh. When you use an empty list, then this effect function will run once when the component is rendered for the first time, and then never again. And in this case, that's what we want. So we have an empty dependency list. So here I'm going to make a call to fetch the URL. So note here how I don't have to say localhost 5000. So basically I just see the path, and then the proxy configuration is going to take care of this, and it's going to forward this request over to Flask transparently, so we don't have to worry about it. So this returns a promise, so we have to use then, and this comes with a response. The response comes, but basically the response is going to have the JSON payload, and this needs to be read and converted into a JavaScript object. This is again it's done, oops, like that, and let's do this like this so that it's more readable. And this is the way the promises in JavaScript work. Another option that you have, if you prefer to use async await for this, that will also work. So you can do that too. So the final one, we get data, and with this data, what we are going to do, so data is going to be whatever the Flask returns, the JSON that Flask returns. So it's going to be a dictionary. The key is going to be time, and the value of that key is going to be the current time, the floating point number with the current time. So I'm going to say set current time data.time. Okay, Copilot this time, got it, good. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to save this. Let's make sure we can look at this. This is still running. So this is now, that it has access to the time, but it's not showing it anywhere in the page. So we cannot see any difference here. So we keep going, and this is the HTML, or I should say JSX, that's going to show this time. So scroll down into the section that has the render code, and we're going to put it right so you can see here. There's the edit line is this here, and then the button is this code here. So I'm going to put it right in between the two. So there we go. So this is a paragraph, and here we're showing the current time is, and then we use React's template language, or JSX template language, to create a date object using the current time. In JavaScript, the time needs to be multiplied. In Python, it comes in seconds. In JavaScript, it's assumed to be in milliseconds. So we multiply what we've got from Python by 1,000, and then we ask the browser to render it as a locale string. So this is going to be whatever format you have configured on your browser to show dates and times. So let's save this, and automatically here we have the time displayed. So there you have it. This is the little project. Hopefully this is going to help you bootstrap your Flask and React project. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any ideas or anything you'd like to suggest that you use in your own workflows, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.